Alright, so we're here in the Focus, and the problem I've been having here is when you start it up cold, the engine vibrates like crazy. So let's see if it picks up on the camera here. So hopefully you guys can hear that. You don't really feel it, but you can definitely hear it. The entire car just the whole thing just vibrates. So we're going to see about fixing that. And I don't know if you could hear it before, but now that the engine's warmed up, I drove it around for a little while. There's no more vibration. So I read online, some people were suggesting that if the engine vibrates when it's cold but warms up and stops, then it might be the motor mounts. So, where are they? I got two new motor mounts from Advanced Auto Parts right there. Now there's three motor mounts on these cars. There's one right here, next to the timing belt. There is one underneath this airbox, and then there's a little dog bone, one that's pretty much not a motor mount but more of a torque rod at the bottom that you access from underneath the car. I'm about to tell you that you need to remove the airbox and the battery to get to the one on top of the transmission, but I'm wrong. You don't need to remove the battery, you can just remove this. Now, thanks to the magic of video, I can film things out of order. Now, the part that you're about to see was filmed like a month and a half ago. I mean, it all seems to flow pretty well when it's put together, but in honesty, it's kind of, I forget things and I leave things out and I got to film them later. Now, as you saw in the video about the timing belt and the water pump, we know that this one's bad, but I'm going to replace all three of them because they're fairly cheap, and I figure that you might have a different motor mount that's causing you problems, and you might want to know how to replace it. So the one that goes on top of the transmission, it's underneath the airbox and the battery, so let's pull those out. Next, you can remove the airbox and the airbox lid. So first you unplug the airflow sensor, and then to get this off the throttle body, there's a hose clamp here, 1/4 inch socket. We'll get that off. So just twist this guy a little bit. My air filter actually stuck to the lid, but no matter. Usually it'll be sitting down in here. Then you just pull this straight up. It's got little rubber mounts, and it just pops right in and out of those. So once you pull it out or up, it comes out. And there's the engine mount. Alright, so now I got one of these little scissor jacks here, and you don't really want to crawl under a car with one of these. They're good for, on the side of the road or whatever, you got to change the tire. But we're just holding up the weight of the engine here, and we're not going to crawl under the car either. So I'm just going to put this right under the transmission on the seam here. It's really not too important. Just don't do it on anything that looks like sheet metal or anything that looks like plastic. And just crank it up a little bit until it's not really important how much, as long as it's not going to fall down when you take the mount out. Alright, so now I'm going to take this middle nut off. Oh, simple enough. Now I'm just going to do these other four. And that just slides right off. Can't complain about that. Okay, so I got the two engine mounts next to each other. New one's on the left, obviously. And I'm just comparing them to make sure they look the same before I go through the trouble of putting it on. And they do. Okay, so that little tab right there fits into a corresponding notch on the top of the transmission. So it's pretty simple. Just drop it in there, like such. So we'll just slide this nut on here. Just finger tight for now. And do the same with these four right here. Now I'm just going to go ahead and tighten down these bolts around the perimeter here. Alright, so we got that motor mount on. Now we can grab the bottom of the airbox and drop it back in. Just kind of drops into place there, into its rubber mounts, and it's good. Drop the air filter in, make sure it's properly seated there, and drop this back on. And just tighten down these four screws, and tighten that hose clamp onto the throttle body. Don't forget to plug in your MAF sensor, or your car's not going to like you. Now we can drop in the battery. Alright, so first thing we're going to do is make sure the parking brake's on. which it is. And then I'm going to jack it up and put it on jack stands. I'm just going to do the front, no need to jack up the back. Alright, so we got the car jacked up here, sitting on jack stands, and I got it up pretty high, so this would be nice to work under. Let me get my light out and then we'll have a look at what we got to do. Alright, so here we are underneath of it. There's the mount. So, it's pretty simple. There's one bolt there that we got to take out. One bolt there, but I don't think we'd be able to slide it out. So we also got to take the mount off of where it connects this little piece that bolts onto the transmission here. So that's 3 bolts as well. So we'll start by cracking all these loose. Now when I did the clutch on this car, I think that this bolt was really tight going in because the threads were screwed up. So we're going to see what happens. Hopefully we have some good luck, but not sure. Okay, so this is turning actually, so hopefully we're going to have some good luck here and everything's going to come apart. Alright, I'll try to crack this one loose now. Oh yeah. Alright, I'm just going to go ahead and crack all these loose. Alrighty, so I'm moving this bolt. This one, actually, it turns easily, but it's seized to the motor mount, the metal part in the center of the rubber insert. So it's not the rubber is twisting and not allowing this to turn. So we're gonna have to deal with that in a little bit. Alright, so I finally got that last engine mount out of there, the bottom one. So that was pretty nice and corroded, and I had to cut it and then cut the bushing and do all sorts of stuff to get it out, because steel bolts in aluminum will corrode and get stuck. So anyway, I got it out and I got myself a new bolt to replace the one that broke. I chased some threads with my tap, my die, which is on the floor right there. Got everything working. So now it's time to put it all back together. Alright, so we got everything out here and now we're ready to reinstall it. So first thing, we can slide this into place and thread our shiny new bolt up into the center of it. But to prevent this problem from happening again, I'm going to grease this bolt before I thread it in. My greasy bolt here. Just stuff it up in there. Oh yeah, and just thread it on in. Now we don't want to tighten anything yet. We want to get everything in place before we tighten anything down all the way. So I'm just going to thread this in most of the way. Next is this bracket here, which slides over that and then into place somewhere else. I don't even know. Let's see. Maybe it goes this way. That looks a little bit better. Yeah, that's how it goes. Alrighty, so I'm just going to slide that over that and then slide in some bolts. Alright, so I got my my motor mount all tightened down these bolts. Best thing to do, leave this bolt for last, don't put it in until last. Get everything up, this finger tight, then rotate the motor and get that thing back into place, and you'll be alright. Alright, now it's time to do the last motor mount. This one is one of the easiest ones to get to, actually. So we need to remove the expansion tank, and that's pretty much it before we can access the motor mount itself, which is right under there. I'm just going to undo this clip here, undo these hoses from their clips. There's a 10mm bolt right there, and we just need to get a flat screwdriver and undo that clip at the back. And then just get back here with a flat screwdriver and unclip the expansion tank. We'll also need to remove the power steering reservoir just because the hose is getting in the way. Just slide it up, rubber grommets fit into slots, and then it'll move out of the way. Alright, so here you can see the motor mount. There's 3 bolts that hold the black plate to the frame or to the body, and 2 bolts that hold it to the timing cover there. We need to remove all 5 of those, and then we'll be able to remove the motor mount from this black plate with the bolts on the bottom. So we need to take the whole assembly off. And of course, support the motor from underneath with a jack. Now just buzz off these engine mounts. And here you can see this motor mount is definitely torn. That's causing all the vibration. And on the bottom, you can see a nut that holds the motor mount to this plate. So we just need to buzz that out of there. Enough. Then we'll take our new one. There's a pin here that fits into a hole. So just make sure those are lined up. Thread the nut on there and tighten it back down. Now we can just toss this whole assembly back on the motor. It should drop right in, just like the factory one did. This is kind of it looks like these holes are just a tiny bit too small. So I'm just going to coerce them a little bit. Now this one is made out of aluminum and these bolts are steel, so I'm not worried about damaging the threads. And you can see it was really close. It just wasn't quite large enough. But no big deal. Aftermarket parts are almost never as good as the OEM. There's obviously exceptions to that, but OEM parts are usually better. I'm going to tighten these ones down first. Now I'm going to let the motor down. There we go. Oops, might have gone too far. Let's see here. Oh, we're good. Once they're all threaded in slightly, you just buzz them all the way in. Now we can get the power steering reservoir back rip-alongs and slide the rubber grommets into their grooves. And same thing with the expansion tank. Once you have the clip in the back clipped in, tighten install this bolt here. And just clip the hoses into their little keepers. Now we're ready to see if that awful vibration is gone. Alright, let's see if it made any difference. Neutral. Oh yeah, like a brand new car. Sweet.